Nobody laughed harder than Riley when Professor Orvhen opened the chapter on mythological species. The young Fenari student sat in the third row, her silver fur catching the light from the classroom's floating displays. Her large ears twitched with amusement as the professor's 6 tentacles tapped against the teaching console. "Today we examine species that exist only in folklore," Professor Orvhen announced. His voice was wet and bubbling, typical of his molluscoid kind. "Creatures that various cultures have invented to explain the unexplainable." The display flickered to life. Strange beings appeared on screen, dragons from the Outer Rim legends, the shadow walkers of the nebula myths, and then a new image appeared. It showed a creature standing upright on 2 legs. It had smooth skin in various shades of brown and pink, 2 arms ending in 5 flexible fingers, a flat face with forward-facing eyes, small, useless-looking ears pressed against the sides of its head. "Humans," Professor Orvhen said with a dismissive wave of his tentacles. "Perhaps the most ridiculous myth in galactic history." Riley leaned forward. She had heard stories about humans since childhood. Her grandmother used to whisper tales about them to frighten young Fenari into behaving. "According to legend," the professor continued, "humans originated on a death world called Earth, a planet so hostile that it experiences constant temperature extremes, violent weather patterns, and regular mass extinction events." Several students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The myths claim humans breathe an atmosphere containing oxygen, one of the most corrosive and dangerous gases in the known universe. They supposedly drink dihydrogen monoxide, a universal solvent that can dissolve almost anything given enough time. A crystalline student in the front row made a sound of disbelief. "But the legends become truly absurd from here," Professor Orvhen said, clearly enjoying himself. "Humans are described as persistence predators. Rather than ambushing prey or using speed, they supposedly followed their targets for hours or even days until the prey simply collapsed from exhaustion." "That is not possible," someone said. "Exactly," the professor nodded. "No biological system could sustain such activity, but the myths go further. Humans supposedly find pleasure in consuming capsaicin, a chemical weapon that causes burning pain. They are said to bond with apex predators, somehow convincing wolves to become their companions over thousands of years." The class erupted in laughter. Riley giggled along with them. The idea was ridiculous. No sane species would try to befriend something that could eat them. "Perhaps most fantastical," Professor Orvhen continued, "is the claim that humans leak fluid from their eyes when experiencing strong emotions. They supposedly do this when sad, happy, angry, or even when exposed to certain vegetables." More laughter filled the room. "Of course, humans are merely a cultural invention," the professor concluded. "A boogeyman created to represent the ultimate survivor. No such species could actually exist. The biological requirements alone would be impossible to meet." Riley's ears suddenly perked up. She heard something strange, a heartbeat, slow and powerful, unlike anything she had encountered before. Her species had excellent hearing, and this sound was coming from the back of the classroom. She turned slowly in her seat. Someone was sitting in the last row, someone she had never seen before. The figure had smooth, pale skin, dark hair, and eyes that faced forward like a predator's gaze. The figure raised one of its 5-fingered hands. "Excuse me, Professor," the creature said. Its voice was surprisingly soft. "I think there might be an error." The classroom went silent. Every student turned to look. Professor Orvhen's tentacles froze mid-motion. His large eyes blinked several times, as if trying to process what he was seeing. The creature stood up slowly. It was tall, much taller than a Fenari. Its movements were smooth and controlled. It walked forward between the rows of desks and Riley noticed something terrifying. Every step was nearly silent. This being knew how to move without making sound, like a hunter. "My name is Danny Webb," the creature said. "I am a human from Earth, and I am very much real." 3 students fainted immediately. A gaseous being in the corner expanded rapidly in panic. The crystalline student cracked slightly from stress, but really did not move. She sat frozen in her seat, watching as the myth from her grandmother's stories walked past her desk. She caught his scent. It was strange but not unpleasant, different from anything she knew. Danny stopped a few feet from the professor's platform. He looked around at the terrified faces surrounding him. "I am sorry for startling everyone," he said gently. "I am part of a new exchange program between Earth and the Galactic Union. I was told this class would help me understand how other species see humans." He paused and looked at the display still showing the mythological chapter. "I did not expect this." Professor Orvhan finally found his voice. This is not, you cannot be." Danny smiled, really saw his teeth. They were not all sharp like a pure predator, some were flat for grinding plants, an omnivore, a creature that could eat anything. "I promise I am not here to hurt anyone," Danny said. "I just want to learn and maybe help correct some of these myths." He glanced at the display again. "Although I have to admit most of those facts are actually true. We do chase our prey until it collapses. We do bond with wolves. And yes, we do cry when we cut onions." He looked directly at Riley. She was the only student who had not run to the back of the room. "I do not bite," Danny said softly. "Well, not unless someone asks nicely." Riley was not sure if that was supposed to be a joke. She was also not sure why she suddenly wanted to find out. The silence in the classroom was so thick that Riley could hear her own heartbeat racing. Every student had pushed themselves against the walls, trying to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the impossible creature standing near the professor's platform. Professor Orvhan had wrapped 3 of his tentacles around his teaching console, as if it could somehow protect him. Danny Webb stood alone in the center of the room, looking genuinely confused by the reaction. "Did I say something wrong?" he asked. Nobody answered. A feathered student near the window was trembling so hard that loose plumes were falling to the floor. The arthropod in the corner had raised its defensive spines. Danny sighed softly. He ran one of his 5-fingered hands through his dark hair, and several students flinched at the movement. "Okay," he said slowly. "I understand this is a lot to process. Maybe we can start over." He lowered himself to the floor, sitting cross-legged so he was no longer towering over everyone. "My name is Danny. I am 19 years old. I come from a place called Australia, which is on Earth. I like music. I have a dog named Biscuit, and I promise I am not going to hunt any of you." Professor Orvhan finally found enough courage to speak. "How did you get here? How did you survive the journey? Our atmosphere contains trace amounts of chlorine gas. It should have killed you within minutes." Danny shrugged. "I noticed it smells a bit strange, but it is not too bad. Back home, we have cities where the air quality is much worse. I grew up near a factory district." The professor's eyes widened. "You find chlorine gas merely unpleasant?" "Well, it is not exactly fresh mountain air," Danny said with a small smile. "But I have breathed worse." Riley watched all of this from her seat in the 3rd row. She had not moved since Danny entered. Her fear was still there, but something else was growing alongside it. Curiosity. She studied the human carefully. His forward-facing eyes were unsettling at first. They tracked movement with predator precision. But there was something in them that she had not expected. Warmth, uncertainty, almost nervousness. He was scared too, she realized. He was alone in a room full of aliens who saw him as a monster, and he was trying so hard to seem harmless. Riley stood up from her desk. Every eye in the room turned to her. A classmate made a warning sound, urging her to stay back. She ignored it. She walked toward Danny slowly. Her small Fenari body came up to about his chest level even when he was sitting. Her large ears were pressed flat against her head, a sign of submission in her species. Danny watched her approach but did not move. He kept his hands visible on his knees, palms up, non-threatening. "Hello," Riley said. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Hello," Danny replied gently. "You are the first person who has not run away from me today. I appreciate that." "I am Riley," she said. I am a Fenari. We are from the outer spiral. Nice to meet you, really. Danny slowly extended one hand toward her, palm still up. This is how humans greet new friends. You do not have to touch it if you do not want to. Really looked at his hand. 5 fingers, short, blunt claws that humans called fingernails. The palm was warm. She could feel the heat radiating from it. Human body temperature was higher than most species. She reached out with one of her small paws and placed it against his palm. His skin was soft, not scaly or rough like she expected, and his touch was gentle, barely any pressure at all. See, Danny said quietly, not so scary. Behind them, Professor Orvhen cleared his throat. This is highly irregular. I must contact the Academy administration. There are protocols for... He trailed off, clearly having no idea what protocols existed for this situation. If it helps, Danny said, I have all my documentation, student visa, medical clearance, psychological evaluation. The union approved my exchange application 3 months ago. 3 months, the professor repeated. The union has known about humans for 3 months. Actually, they have known about us for about 2 years, Danny said. First contact happened when one of your exploration vessels got too close to our solar system, but they wanted to keep it quiet until they figured out how to introduce us to the rest of the galaxy. He looked around at the terrified classroom. I think they might have underestimated how scary we would seem, he admitted. A student in the back finally gathered enough courage to speak. Is it true that your species conquered your entire planet? Danny's expression became complicated. Conquered is not exactly the right word. We spread across it, yes. We adapted to every environment. Deserts, frozen tundra, jungles, mountains. We built cities everywhere, but we made a lot of mistakes along the way. We are still trying to fix some of them. You feel regret? Really asked, surprised. Of course, Danny said. We feel everything very strongly. Happiness, sadness, anger, love, guilt. Sometimes we feel things so strongly that our bodies cannot contain it and we leak from our eyes. We call it crying. He looked down at Riley's paw, still resting against his palm. Right now, he said softly, I feel grateful. Because in a room full of people who see me as a monster from their nightmares, one small, brave person decided to say hello. Riley's ears slowly rose from their flattened position. Maybe the legends had got everything wrong after all. Or maybe they had just forgotten to mention the most important part. By the 3rd day, Danny Webb had become the most famous student in the history of the Galactic Academy. Riley found him in the Commons area, surrounded by a crowd of aliens who kept a careful 5-meter distance. They watched him like scientists observing a dangerous specimen. Danny sat at a table, eating something from a small container, seemingly unbothered by the attention. She pushed through the crowd and sat across from him. You came back, Danny said, looking pleased. I was hoping you would. What are you eating? Riley asked, eyeing the strange food. Spicy noodles, want to try some? A nearby student gasped. He is trying to poison her. Danny laughed and Riley noticed how the sound made several aliens step back. Human laughter apparently sounded threatening to untrained ears. It is just food, Danny said, but it does contain capsaicin. That might not be safe for other species. The burning chemical, Riley's ears flattened. You eat that for pleasure. It tastes good to us, Danny said with a shrug. Makes our mouths feel warm and tingly. Some humans eat peppers so hot that they cry and sweat and cannot speak for several minutes. Then they eat more. The crowd murmured in horrified fascination. A crystalline student gathered courage and stepped closer. Is it true about the eye fluid that humans leak when emotional? Danny nodded. We cry when we are sad, but also when we are very happy or moved by something beautiful or watching certain movies or cutting onions. Our eyes are very dramatic. What are onions? Someone asked. A vegetable. When you cut it, it releases a chemical that irritates human eyes. We know this, but we keep eating them anyway because they taste good. Riley tilted her head. Your species is strange. You have no idea, Danny agreed. A large arthropod pushed through the crowd. Riley recognized him from advanced combat studies. His name was Grath, and he had won several fighting tournaments. I do not believe the legends about human hunting, Grath said, his mandibles clicking aggressively. No species can chase prey until it dies. It is physically impossible. Danny set down his noodles. It is called persistence hunting. We cannot run as fast as most prey animals, but we can run longer. We can sweat to cool our bodies while other creatures overheat. We can carry water with us. We track footprints and follow blood trails. Eventually, the prey just stops running because it physically cannot continue. How long? Grath demanded. Sometimes a few hours, sometimes all day. There are records of hunts lasting 2 or 3 days. The crowd fell silent. Our ancestors used to do this regularly, Danny continued. Now we mostly do it for sport. We call it marathon running. Humans will run 42 kilometers without stopping just to prove they can. Some run even further. There is a race across a desert called the Badwater. Ultramarathon. It is 217 kilometers through one of the hottest places on Earth. Why? Riley asked, genuinely confused. Danny smiled. Because it is there, because we want to see if we can. Humans have this need to push ourselves, to test our limits. We climb mountains that could kill us. We dive into ocean depths that crush most machines. We strap ourselves to rockets and fly into space. For science? Grath asked. Sometimes just for fun. A small gaseous being floated closer. The legends say humans tamed wolves, made them companions. Is this true? Danny's face lit up. Oh, this is my favorite part. He pulled out a small device, pressed some buttons, and a glowing image appeared above it. A furry creature with a long snout and floppy ears, its tongue hanging out happily. This is Biscuit, Danny said. My dog. We have been friends since I was 12 years old. That is a predator, someone whispered. He is a golden retriever, Danny corrected. About 40,000 years ago, humans and wolves started working together. Wolves helped us hunt, and we shared our food and shelter with them. Over thousands of generations, wolves became dogs. Now they are our best friends. Biscuit sleeps in my bed, eats treats from my hand, and gets very excited when I come home. He showed more images. Biscuit playing in a yard. Biscuit wearing a ridiculous holiday sweater. Biscuit sleeping on a couch with his legs in the air. Dogs can read human emotions better than any other species, Danny said. They know when we are happy or sad or sick. They comfort us without being asked. Some dogs guide blind humans or detect diseases or help people with anxiety. Riley stared at the images. This fearsome death world species had taken wolves, one of Earth's most dangerous predators, and turned them into creatures that wore sweaters and begged for treats. The legends say humans are monsters, she said quietly. But monsters do not make friends with wolves. Monsters do not run for days just to see if they can. Monsters do not cry when they are happy. Danny looked at her with those predator eyes that somehow seemed so gentle. The legends forgot the most important thing about humans, he said. We will do anything for the people we care about. We will chase prey across continents. We will befriend wolves. We will walk through fire. He paused. And once we decide someone is part of our pack, we never let them go. Riley's heart did something strange. She was beginning to understand why humans were so dangerous. It was not because they could kill you. It was because they could make you love them. The botanical wing was supposed to be the safest place in the academy. Riley had been there dozens of times for biology classes. The section contained plants from hundreds of worlds, carefully maintained in separate containment units. Temperature controlled, atmosphere regulated, completely harmless. Until it was not. The explosion was small, just a minor seal failure in Containment Unit 47. The automated system should have locked it down immediately, but something went wrong and yellow pollen began spreading through the ventilation system. Scorian pollen, harmless to most species, fatal to Fenari. Riley was looking at a display of glowing ferns when she felt the first symptoms. Her lungs tightened, her vision blurred, her legs stopped working. She collapsed onto the cold floor, gasping for air that her body could no longer process. Around her, students were screaming and running for the exits. The alarm systems were blaring. Teachers were shouting evacuation orders. Nobody stopped to help the small, silver-furred body lying in the corner. Nobody except Danny. He had been across the room, examining a carnivorous flower from some swamp world. When the alarm started, his first instinct was to look for Riley. They had been spending time together for almost 2 weeks now. She was his only real friend at the academy. He saw her fall. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The chaos, the noise, the panic. All he could see was Riley's gray fur and her struggling breath. Danny moved before his brain could catch up. He sprinted across the botanical wing, dodging fleeing students and jumping over fallen displays. He reached Riley in seconds and dropped to his knees beside her. "Riley, can you hear me?" Her eyes were unfocused. Her small chest was barely moving. The gray color was spreading through her silver fur like poison. The medical wing was half a kilometer away. Through corridors, up 2 levels, past the commons area. In a station full of aliens who walked at half-human speed, that distance might as well be on another planet. But Danny was not like the other aliens. He scooped Riley's small body into his arms and stood up. She weighed almost nothing to him. Fenari were light-boned, built for speed and agility. In his arms, she felt fragile, breakable. "Hold on," he whispered. "Just hold on." And then he ran. The students in the corridors saw something that would haunt their memories for years. A human, a death world predator, sprinting at full speed through the academy. His face was set in hard determination. His eyes were locked forward. His legs pumped in a rhythm that should have been impossible to sustain. Doors flashed past, corners blurred. Danny did not slow down. He did not stop to breathe. He did not let his muscles convince him to rest. Riley was dying in his arms. Nothing else mattered. A group of teachers tried to stop him. They probably thought he was attacking a student. Danny dodged around them without breaking stride, shouting over his shoulder that he needed the medical wing. The stairs almost stopped him. 2 flights, steep, designed for species that did not need to hurry. Danny took them 3 at a time, his lungs burning, his heart pounding against his ribs. 3 minutes, that is how long he ran at full speed. 3 minutes of pushing his body past every limit. 3 minutes of refusing to let his muscles fail. 3 minutes of holding Riley's tiny form against his chest and willing her to keep breathing. He burst through the medical wing doors and nearly crashed into the reception desk. "Help," he gasped. "Scorian pollen, Fenari, she cannot breathe." The medical staff reacted immediately. They took Riley from his arms and rushed her to a treatment pod. Danny tried to follow, but his legs finally gave out. He collapsed against a wall, sliding down to the floor. His body was covered in sweat. Humans could dump heat through their skin, something most species could not do. It kept them from overheating during extended exertion. But it left Danny looking like he had just stepped out of a rainstorm. His chest heaved, his muscles trembled, his vision swam. But he stayed conscious. He refused to pass out until he knew she was safe. An hour later, a medical technician found him still sitting on the floor outside Riley's treatment room. The technician was some kind of amphibian, with large, wet eyes that blinked sideways. "Your friend will survive," the technician said. "We neutralized the pollen in time. A few more minutes and her lungs would have crystallized completely." Danny let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. "You carried her half a kilometer," the technician continued. "At a speed our instruments initially classified as a vehicle. Your cardiovascular system should have failed. Your muscles should have torn, but you just kept going." Danny looked up with exhausted eyes. "She is my friend." The technician studied him for a long moment. "The legends say humans are monsters," they said finally. "But I watched the security footage. Monsters do not run themselves nearly to death to save a single small alien they have only known for 2 weeks. They opened the door to Riley's room. She has been asking for you. Danny somehow found the strength to stand. His legs screamed in protest. His entire body felt like it was made of pain and determination. He walked into the room anyway. Riley was lying on a medical bed, looking small and fragile, but her fur was silver again and her eyes were clear. "You came for me," she whispered. Danny sat down beside her bed and took her small paw in his hand. "Of course I did," he said. "You are Pac." Riley did not know exactly what that word meant to humans, but she was starting to understand. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. Massive curved walls stretched upward into darkness. Floating platforms held representatives from a dozen different species. Lights focused downward on a single small stage, making anyone standing there feel exposed and vulnerable. Danny Webb stood on that stage, looking up at the assembled powers of the Galactic Union. They had summoned him 3 days after the botanical incident. 3 days of whispered conversations behind closed doors. 3 days of security footage being analyzed and shared and debated. Now they wanted answers. "Danny Webb of Earth," a voice boomed from above. The speaker was a massive creature made of living stone, representing the mining world's coalition. "You have been observed displaying physical capabilities that exceed our safety parameters." Danny said nothing. He had been advised to let them speak first. "We have compiled a file on your species," another representative said. This one was serpentine, coiled around a floating platform. "Persistence predation, toxic resistance, extreme pain tolerance, adrenaline response that allows temporary enhancement of strength and speed, pack bonding behavior that creates irrational loyalty." "Irrational?" Danny asked quietly. "You nearly killed yourself running half a kilometer," the serpentine being said. "For a creature you had known for less than 2 standard weeks, that is not rational behavior. She was dying. She was not your responsibility." Danny felt something cold settle in his stomach. He was beginning to understand where this conversation was heading. "The Galactic Union has concerns," the stone creature rumbled. "Your species evolved on a death world. You are built for survival in conditions that would destroy most intelligent life. And now you are here among us, demonstrating capabilities that our societies cannot match." "Are you asking if humans are dangerous?" Danny asked. Silence from the floating platforms. "Because the answer is yes," Danny continued. "We are dangerous. Every fact in your file is true. We can chase prey until it collapses. We can survive environments that would kill you. We can bond so strongly with others that we will throw ourselves into harm without thinking." The council members shifted uncomfortably. "But you are looking at the facts without context," Danny said. "You see persistence predation and think of hunting, but that same persistence is why we never give up on people we love. We will search for lost children for years. We will spend decades trying to cure diseases. We will keep trying to contact lost spacecraft long after everyone else has given up hope." He took a step forward, and several council members flinched. "You see toxic resistance and think of danger, but we use that resistance to run into burning buildings and rescue people from fires. We drink poison to kill infections inside our bodies. We endure pain to help others avoid it." His voice was growing stronger now. "You see pack bonding and call it irrational. But that bonding is why humans have animal shelters where we care for abandoned creatures. It is why we have foster systems for children without families. It is why a human who has known a small alien for 2 weeks will run until his legs give out to save her life." The council chamber had gone completely silent. "You want to know if humans are dangerous?" Danny asked. "Yes, we are the most dangerous species you have ever encountered, but not because we can kill you." He looked up at each platform in turn. "We are dangerous because we care. Because once we decide someone is worth protecting, we will move mountains to keep them safe. And once we decide something, is worth fighting for. We will never, ever stop. A door opened at the side of the chamber. Riley walked in slowly, still weak from her ordeal. She had insisted on attending, even though she could barely stand. "May I speak?" she asked. The council members looked at each other in confusion. This was highly irregular. "The small one may speak," the stone creature said eventually. Riley made her way to the center stage. She stood beside Danny, her head barely reaching his waist. "3 weeks ago, I sat in a classroom and laughed at the legends of humans," she said. "I thought they were monsters invented to frighten children. Then I met Danny." Her voice was quiet but steady. "The legends said humans were impossible survivors from a death world. That part was true. The legends said humans bond with dangerous creatures and make them family. That part was true too. But the legends forgot something important." She looked up at Danny with her large Fenari eyes. "The legends forgot to mention that humans do not just survive. They protect, they heal, they love, and when a human decides you are part of their pack, they will tear themselves apart to keep you safe." She turned back to the council. "Danny nearly killed himself saving me, not because he wanted something, not because I was valuable or important, just because I was his friend. Just because he could not stand the thought of letting me die." Her ears were standing straight up now, a sign of confidence in her species. "You ask if humans are dangerous. I say they are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But that danger is exactly what we need. Because imagine what the galaxy could become if humans decided to protect all of us the way Danny protected me." The council was silent for a long time. Finally, the stone creature spoke. "We will take your words under consideration." Danny nodded. He reached down and carefully lifted Riley in his arms. She was too tired to walk back. As they left the chamber together, Riley whispered, "Do you think they understood?" Danny looked down at the small alien he had nearly died to save. "I hope so," he said, "because humans are coming to the stars, and we are bringing our love with us whether the galaxy is ready or not." 6 months changed everything. The classroom looked the same as it always had. Same floating displays, same curved walls designed to accommodate students of various sizes. Same teaching platform where Professor Orvhen stood with his 6 tentacles, folded neatly behind his back. But the textbooks were different now. The chapter on mythological species had been removed entirely. In its place was something new, something that would change how the galaxy understood itself. "Humans," Professor Orvhen read aloud to his new class of students. "Galactic Union member species, first contact year 2157. Home world, Earth, classified as a Category 12 death world in the Spiral Arm region." The professor paused, glancing toward the back of the classroom, where a certain human exchange student now served as a teaching assistant. "Humans are persistence predators with extreme environmental adaptation capabilities," he continued. "They can survive temperature ranges that would kill most species. They consume substances that would be toxic to other life forms. They have evolved a unique cooling system that allows them to maintain physical activity far longer than any comparable species." Danny Webb sat in the back row, smiling slightly. Next to him, Riley was taking notes with a device specially designed for her small Fenari paws. "But perhaps their most remarkable trait," Professor Orvhen said, "is their capacity for bonding. Humans form deep emotional connections with remarkable speed and maintain those connections with fierce loyalty. This has led to their current role as the backbone of the Union's search and rescue services." A student raised a tentacle. "Is it true that humans volunteer for disaster relief?" "Yes," the professor confirmed. "Human volunteers now staff emergency response teams across 47 systems. They have a particular talent for running toward danger while everyone else runs away." Another student, a young crystalline, asked, "Why would they do that? What do they gain?" Professor Orvhen looked toward Danny. "Perhaps our human assistant can answer that question." Danny stood up slowly. The new students watched him with wide eyes, They had heard the stories. Everyone had heard the stories now. "We do it because we cannot stand watching others suffer," Danny said simply. "It is not logical, it is not strategic, it is just how we are built. When we see someone in pain, something inside us demands that we help, even if it hurts us, even if it might kill us." He walked to the front of the classroom, and Riley followed him. "6 months ago, I saved Riley's life," Danny continued. "I ran half a kilometer while my muscles screamed and my lungs burned and my body begged me to stop. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, not because she is useful to me, not because I expected a reward, but because she is my friend, my pack, my family." Riley stepped forward. "I have chosen to specialize in xenoanthropology," she announced to the class. "The study of humans, because I believe understanding them is the most important work the galaxy can do right now." She looked up at Danny with affection in her large eyes. "Humans are impossible," she said. "Everything about them should not work. They should have died on their death world millions of years ago, but they did not just survive. They thrived. They conquered their planet. They tamed wolves. They built machines that flew them to their moon, and now they are here among us bringing their impossible love to the stars." A timid student raised an appendage. "The old textbooks said humans were monsters. Were they wrong?" Danny and Riley exchanged a look. "No," Danny said. "The old textbooks were right about the facts. We are dangerous. We are persistent. We bond with things we should not bond with and protect them with everything we have." He smiled, showing his omnivore teeth. "But the textbooks miss the context. The same traits that make us terrifying also make us wonderful. We are monsters who run into fires to save strangers. We are predators who adopt orphaned animals and raise them as family. We are death world survivors who cry at sad movies and laugh until we cannot breathe and hug our friends when they are scared." He pulled out his communicator and pressed a button. A familiar face appeared on the floating display. Golden fur, floppy ears, a tongue hanging out in a ridiculous doggy smile. "This is Biscuit," Danny said. "My dog, my best friend back on Earth." The class watched as Biscuit's tail began wagging so hard his entire body shook. Danny made kissing noises at the screen, and Biscuit's excitement doubled. 40,000 years ago," Danny said, "humans looked at wolves, one of the most dangerous predators on our planet, and thought, I want to be friends with that. Now wolves wear sweaters and sleep in our beds and get excited when we come home." He looked around at the classroom full of aliens who had been raised on stories about human monsters. "That is what humans do," he said. "We find things that should be impossible to love, and we love them anyway. We find creatures that should be our enemies, and we make them family. We look at a dangerous galaxy full of species who are afraid of us, and we think, I want to be friends with that." Riley moved closer to Danny's side. He rested one hand gently on her silver-furred head. "The old textbooks called humans impossible," she said to the class. "They were right. Everything about them is impossible, and yet here they are, running toward danger, befriending monsters, crying at sad stories, making the galaxy feel a little less cold." She looked up at Danny with a smile. "The legends said humans were myths," she said. "But myths are just truths we were not ready to believe, and now that we know humans are real, nothing will ever be the same." The classroom was silent for a long moment. Then a small, gaseous student floated forward. "Can I see more pictures of Biscuit?" Danny laughed, and this time nobody flinched. The galaxy was finally learning what humans really were. Not monsters, not myths, just very, very good friends.